How's it going, folks? I am super pumped because today is our first day with React, which I was really looking forward to, and I think I'm not the only one here. From my experience, that was the coolest part of learning web development and full stack web development, because instantaneously you can see your work being changed and growing. And front end is something that we all are surrounded by. Backend is behind the scenes. We don't have an access to backend of like Facebook, Google, everything we use, our phones. All we are exposed to is front end, so we are used to it, and being able to build it is like, it gives you the feeling of building the world around us. We all should appreciate the work of the backend developers, and obviously if you are a developer, you know that very often backend is much more complex than front end, but at the same time, it's behind the scenes, so it's harder to appreciate, and that's why I love learning front end as well. So today I'm going to show you how to use React in Django, and there are different ways of doing it. You might have like a standalone Django REST framework API, Django REST API that is communicating with standalone React app. And that's nice because you separate those concerns. So separation of concern, the front end and back end are separated, and that's pretty nice. But at the same time, the new complexity is added. You need to use tokens for authorization, which is a good idea. And a lot of companies use that because when you have an actual REST API, there's no such thing as session. So whenever you connect to that server, there's no such thing as, okay, authenticate me, and from now on my calls will be authenticated. So you need some sort of a token. We're not going to do that. We're going to put React inside of Django, and it's going to be compiled and ready to go, ready to be used. And so it's going to make it easier from even development perspective. So if it's one of your first projects using React, I think it's going to take a lot of complexity that you don't want to look at. And also we can tap into some of the Django sessions and all that jazz. So it is a nice middle ground. Okay, so without further ado, let me start our new app. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to create an app called Frontend where our React will exist. So Python manage py start app front end. And obviously first thing you do after starting a new app, which is here, we go to settings and installed apps and website, my finances. So that's going to be here, comma, and that's done. And now we want to go to this folder here. And so we might just do it from here. So we want to add a couple of folders where React will exist. So let's do it now. So in front end, we want to create source / and that's where we store our React components. So this source is something that you'll see a bit more when you do your React in the future. Source is basically where we keep React source code, which then will be compiled into the main JS file, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Another couple of folders that we're going to create here is, and we're going to create two of them. So that's one too many. Okay, and that's a quick way of creating those. So one, that was the first command, and here we have static frontend and templates frontend, and that's the structure we want to have. There are many ways of having a React structure, and it's totally up to you. But at the beginning, it's always good to follow whatever it is and not think about it. If at some point you feel like, oh, these directories, they're not formatted the way I would do it, it's good. You start to think about it, but at some point you'll make a decision what goes where. But for now, let's follow this. And by the way, I follow somebody else's idea. So that's just something I learned and I liked it, and I'm going to just continue doing it this way. So again, components will be, so source folder is where we keep the source code of React. And then we have static, where we keep the main JS. And in here, we're going to keep this one index HTML template where we inject the main JS in. So you'll see that in a second. So, okay. So now let's go to front end directory. And in there, we want to initialize Node. So if you don't have Node installed, you just want to go and Google for Node.js or install, okay, and you'll see here there's depending on your operating system, I'm not going to do it, but this is where you install it. And then what you want to do, being in front end directory, it depends on your preference. You might want to go to root folder if you want. I like it in my front end directory to keep it all together in one place. So I'll just type npm init and y to just say yes to all. So just keep it default. Okay, so it seems like it worked. And now what we can do is we can check if there's something crazy. So there is this package JSON. Let me see what more we have in there. Okay, anything crazy? No, it doesn't seem like it. So that's the only thing that is new in here, which is nice. We might want to add something like node, maybe at the end here, something called node modules. Okay, so that's going to keep node modules not in our repo because we don't want to send any node packages to our repo. Okay, so that's done. And speaking of those modules, let's install them. So still being in front end, let's install npm. So, okay, I didn't mention what that npm is. And I mentioned Node, Node.js. So don't want to go too deep into it, but basically Node is helping us using JavaScript just like we used Python. So now we can manage packages, JavaScript packages, and it basically allows us to do exactly the same thing as we do with Python. And by the way, Node is a very popular framework, JavaScript framework, and you might want to get into it. I'm not going to talk about Node more than this, okay? Just follow my lead, use those commands. This is basically pip. We did pip install, now we're doing npm I, and so on. And we're going to install some packages. So I for install, and then -d means we're going to just install it for development. It's not a dependency per se, so we don't need that for running the code, running the program, our portfolio in this case. But we need it for example, transcoding or transpiling or whatever, to put that main.js file in static folder that we then use by Django for rendering front end. Okay, so that's just D means development only. We need that just for development. So first, Webpack and Webpack CLI. So Webpack is something that we use for translating the source code, React source code into that main JS. Give it a second. Okay, that seems to be working. I can see that my npm version is a little bit outdated, but that should be okay. Doesn't look crazy. Another bunch of dependencies that we need to install. And again, that's going to be dev dependencies because I'm adding this -d in here. So keep that in mind. That's very important. Babel /core Babel -loader. And keep in mind here we use @ here we don't, so keep an eye on that. Babel again, @babel /preset env, @babel /preset -react, Babel plugin transform class properties. Okay, there's a couple of things that we need for our code to be translated, and that's Babel. And here we have a couple of different parts of Babel. Some obviously core, something that we use for loading, for some presets for the environment, for React. And here's something called transform class properties plugin. It just helps with the newest version of JavaScript. It's its own thing, so let's not go too deep into it. Trust me, that's going to help us build React app. So that worked. So the last bit we need to install is React itself. So npm install, and now we are not using -d, just React DOM and prop types. Okay, so that's React itself. Here we use that for rendering React in the DOM, the document object model. And then we have prop types that we use for keep an eye on the types of the properties that we use in React. You'll see it's very helpful. But for now, just install this. And that's done. So let's have a look here in package.json. There is a little bit more, and you see that node modules is in here, and that's why we wanted it in git.get ignore, because we don't want that in our repo, but we need that for compiling our source code. Okay, and in package, so here we have our dev dependencies. Let's have a look here. So we have all that Babel core, presets, and webpack, and that's only for dev. And then we have the dependencies that we need for is not just dev dependencies, these are just dependencies. Okay, so let's continue. Next step would be creating inside our front end a new file called .babelrc. Yeah, we can add that later. And in here, we just have to tell Babel a couple of things. One is the presets that we installed before, and that's going to be an array of Babel, at Babel preset env. That's something that we installed before. And then another one will be at Babel /preset React. Okay. And we also installed that plugin. So plugins. Oops. That was supposed to be a colon. And that's going to be transform class properties. Okay, so that's done. Another one is another file, bear with me, called webpack config.js. So it's a JavaScript file. We'll do that later. I'm not going to retype it. I'll just show you. This is the tutorial I'm using. And in here somewhere, I can just copy and paste this webpack config, and that's going to be in the description. So don't worry. You can use this alongside. So you just copy this and put it in here. So basically what it says is find all, and that's the regular expression that says, hey, find all the JS files except for node modules, except for this folder, and use this loader. So that's the stuff that we installed, and that's going to be used for webpack. So that's done. Oh yes, and in package.json, I forgot about this. So there's something called scripts here. So let's replace it with, again, from that here, somewhere here, yeah, from the tutorial. I'm gonna just paste it right here. Okay, so that's scripts, and what it does is we are gonna do npm run either dev or build, and what it's gonna do is for the development, we want to use something that is using development mode. You can see that -- mode in here. So in here we call webpack, we say the mode will be development, the entry file will be index.js inside of source, and the output path is static front end. Okay, that's where we want to compile and dump the compiled file, the main.js. Okay, and that's going to be very similar for build, but that's going to be for production. Okay, and there's another flag that we can add in here, and I'm going to do it just right now because why not? And you want to have that watch in here, and you'll see in a second why. So let's close this. Okay, so what is this entry here? Source, and there is no index.js. We said that that's going to be our entry for webpack. So let's create it. Create index.js. We're gonna cancel that for now. And in here, all we have to do is import app from, and that's going to be where this app is. So app from components, and you can see PyCharm is helping me, just app. So that's going to be the name of the file, JS file, where we're going to have a class called app, and we need to export that app class in this file that doesn't yet exist. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to components and create new file called app.js. Still no. And in here, let's create something very, very simple. So import React from React. Also import React DOM from React, and I can see it's helping me again. So we have React and React DOM imported. And let's start with something very, very simple. So I'm going to create a function-based component called hello, and that's going to be just return. This is very new, and you'll see what it does. Hello world. Okay, so what is this? Why I didn't use quotation marks here? Because this is JSX. And what is JSX? It's an abbreviation for JavaScript Syntax Extension, and it's React extension to JavaScript that helps you to use kind of HTML in React. And you'll see how gorgeous it is. And at the beginning, you're like, why? I just learned HTML. Why would I learn something new? Well, there's always a trade-off here and there. But once you learn it, it just, you forget about the differences between HTML and JSX. It becomes like a second nature. Don't worry about that. So for now, you see that there's no difference. Right now, there's no difference. You're just using H1 and H1, and you just close H1, and that's it. And that's going to work. So let me just render it now. So at the end, all you want to do is use React DOM render. What we want to render is that hello component that I just created. And the second argument here is going to be the HTML element that we grab from HTML, and we just inject our React frontend in. Okay, it's basic stuff. You'll see in a second how it exactly works. So we need to grab a document, get element by ID, and that's just pure JavaScript. And we're going to look for something with ID app, right? We can call it anything, root, app, main, whatever. Whatever is here needs to be in index.html, and you'll see in a second where exactly. So let's go there. So in templates, front end, we want to create this index.html, okay? Oh, sorry. So I'm going to just use the boilerplate for HTML actually, because it's going to help me. And I'm going to call it index. You see we have our boilerplate. Inside of body, I just want to create a div with ID of app. That's the ID I was talking about. That's the ID that DOM will use for rendering. Okay. And in here, we obviously need to add a script. And first we need to allow static. So we need to be able to use static, and we need to add this script. Okay. Which will use source, which will be static. And where that static will be, let's use single quotes. Let me see, that was front end dash. It seems like it doesn't know where to go, but it's going to be front end static and front end. Main.js, right? And I think it's either this or we might need to remove this. We'll see in a second. So let me just leave this as it is. So all we had to do is get this boilerplate and create a, and add this div here and allow static to be loaded. And that's the main.js that after being compiled by Webpack, we will use in here. I'll just leave that title here for now. Okay, so we have our app, we have index.html. We start coming back to what you know already. I know you know that we keep our templates here, and I might as well just keep this in here. I'm just following this article that I showed you a second ago. But that's gonna, for Django, it's the same thing. So if I had front end and index in here, it would be as if I had front end and index in here in these templates. But anyway, it starts to become something that you're familiar with. So here is our index.html, and what we need to do is we need to give it a view So let me just collapse that and open again. So everything gets collapsed. So in views, we need to allow us to get into that index HTML, which will, by the way, at the end, just use that main.js and use the React magic. But first we need to allow us to access it. So def index, and we need to pass request. And in here, all we need to do is return render request, and we just have to say front end. And by the way, what's going on here? So air pollution is there. Oh, okay, so maybe I need to go. Let's see what happens. So for now, it thinks that this is the templates, but not this. I want to know if it knows that I might just keep it in here. So front end HTML, I might need to move some stuff around. For now, don't you worry about this. We will fix this in a second. Okay, we need the URLs now. So new file, or we can copy again. Let's be lazy because we have all the imports there that I don't want to think about. URLs inside of, yep, name will be front end, although we won't use it in templates, so that doesn't really matter. From here, views, get all that. We don't need a name again because we won't use it in templates. We just need index, and that's going to be just like this, and that's it. So we don't really need that, so I'm going to just delete whatever we don't need. Path is here, views is here, and that's it. Now we need to move it to included inside of, where is it? Mark's portfolio, URLs. So I'm going to just copy this and put it at the very top here. So, and I'm going to call it, put a prefix for now, React. We're going to get rid of all of these at some point, and React will take care of all the routing and all the front end basically. So we won't have this anymore. And also, so I don't want to shadow this. So I'm going to just put that prefix for now. And in a second, we will get rid of this, but also we won't have any of that as well. Okay, all we have to do now is run npm run dev. So that's that dev that I mentioned before. We set that up. Instead of build, we use dev because we don't want to go into production. We want to use dev mode, let's say. Okay, so seems like Webpack compiled successfully, and as you can see, it didn't exit. It's still watching, and that was that --watch flag in, let me open this, and in package.json here, that watch is keeping Webpack watching our code. So let's go to here, to our browser, and try to open. Okay, so that's the index from Django. We want to go to React, and it seems like it did work, but not exactly. So I can see that there's something in there. So we set the URLs right. Let me see here, and let's see if it was refreshed, because it does work, right? Something is being built here, but we're not getting something. So static front end static. Okay, that was the thing I was wondering about. So let's go back to index and just get rid of that. So that's the stuff that we want to keep. Front end dash main. That's the only thing that we want to have here. So apologies for the confusion, and let's see. Hello world, yay. So we have React implemented in Django, and that's pretty awesome. Now we are ready for playing with React itself. I know this is not very impressive, but what you should be very happy about is that we have already React to our disposal. So in the next tutorial, I want to keep them short and sweet. So in the next tutorial, I want to show you some basics of React, just so you know what I'm doing instead of just following blindly what I'm doing. And then we can jump in and change all that we have in templates here. So that's all pure HTML using some Jinja. It's going to be all gone, and we're going to replace it with React. We are going to make it basically components, React components, and it's going to, so we get rid of a lot of code in here, but we just turn it into React, and it's a difficult job. I'm telling you right now that this template is not made for React, and one big challenge here is getting rid of jQuery. That is another JavaScript library that we use for Bootstrap, and it kind of contradicts using React. If you have jQuery, it manipulates DOM in a different way than React does, and React is doing it in much more clever way, and you can't really use it alongside. You shouldn't anyway. I did try it and it does work, but it does some wacky stuff. So we're gonna, in the future, we're gonna turn all this that is based on jQuery into something that works with React. And why are we not just using React template? We could, obviously we could, no problem. But I want to show you that it's possible that just get any template in the world and use it with React and just turn it into React if you want to. So, and that's going to be one of the things we do, but then we can finally just focus on building new stuff. Then no new technologies, nothing. Maybe pandas, maybe some, small bits and pieces in the NumPy, whatever you want to have a look at. But, we can just be creative instead of just learn new stuff, which gets boring at some point. So I just want to get to the creative part as fast as possible. Okay, so I'm going to leave here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.